Welcome back, disc golf fans, to round 2 back 9 coverage of the 2024 Play It Again Sports Jonesboro Open presented by Westside Discs. Excited to watch this back 9. We got to see some good birdies, a bit of wind turbulence on the front 9. Looking forward to watching this back 9. I'm Nathan Queen, get joined by Andrew Fish.
Yeah, delighted to be out here at the disc side of Heaven course. Relatively recurrent stop on tour. Going to take 2025 off, but we're delighted to hopefully see it in the future, as it's one of my favorite open tracks on the tour.
Yeah, I agree. They're still hosting an A tier there, so I'm sure we'll see some players show up.
We'll go to hole 10, 818 feet. Straight ahead through this gap. There also are some goofy routes over the right side. Push yourself into a landing zone and then attack either the left or right side gaps up to this sloped green bounded by out of bounds. Calvin Heimburg has treated this as something of a specialty hole for himself, Nathan.
Yeah, he's got that great shape that just keeps on dragging to the right like this shot is. My goodness, that is insane.
So that's where I land when I've thrown two solid game plan shots.
Yeah, the group of trees that he just hit the gap from, I would say majority of players are 100 feet behind that trying to hit that gap. Wow.
Yeah, so Gatekeeper is eliminating some tap outs, given some early green. We can just about book a birdie for him already. I don't want to jinx it.
I sure hope so.
Albert going to go forehand through the gap. That is a perfectly credible space to be.
Yeah, that's typically the distance that you see with backhand shots as well. Ben needs this one to keep on. Yeah, that's a nice kick down. He was flirting with that OB on the left side. Going to be difficult to birdie from that spot, but he will take fairway.
Yeah, I'd rather be a little ways back and throwing two. Jakub, good shape, but into the ground. He's kind of back there in bin land. Going to attack the left side with a forehand. This is a pure par play.
Yeah, just trying to get past that cluster of trees and almost to where Calvin's shot landed. My goodness. Ben not quite executing what he wanted. Hopefully he'll have a look through that group of trees there. As Albert executes a beautiful shot over that right side, playing the hole exactly as he planned, going to get that birdie.
Yeah, good trust to give appropriate height to the disc to let it get back without just sailing. Callaway with his approach going to be coming back for his 4.
And I don't think he jinxed him. Calvin's going to get that birdie, move on to 5 under for the round.
And he threw only one good shot on the hole.
Yeah, that second shot was just okay. Couple par testers here coming back for Jakub and Ben. Going to be just a bit left side.
Jakub has missed a couple putts, but is throwing the disc really well. That's all you can ask for some days, is give yourself enough chances to cover them up.
And Ben, again, covering that par up. Gonna stay clean on the round. Moves us into hole 11. Added a 1 to old hole 1. 470 feet, pretty straightforward. Calvin's had some good luck on this hole also.
Yeah, one time winning in a playoff. This time, his disc lifts and bounces and dips and dodges all the way to the left side, pin high.
And looks like that will be kind of back into a headwind.
Nathan, some days out here, it feels like every hole and every shot is into a headwind.
Yeah, I definitely agree. The rolling hills will make that wind move around along with the tree lines. I like to follow
Ben gets a couple good reads, goes overstable,
Wow.
starts it dragging, and then it fights back into the circle.
Yeah, great control in the wind there. As we see, he'll pick up that birdie.
And Jakub trying for the same idea, but points himself a little too far left to start. So he will be in that cluster, which sometimes is a little challenging to get out of.
Yeah, and Albert here was lucky to get through the other cluster on the right side. He's going to be able to have a clean pitch up for par. And as you stated, looks pretty difficult.
Wow. Very well done. Not more than a couple discs wide. Jakub out to about 18 feet or so.
And nice pitch up there from Calvin, maybe trying to give it a chance. And Jakub able to connect on his par putt after a well-executed scramble shot.
We'll go on to hole 12, 820 feet, a par 4. The tee shot is downhill, kind of into a valley. Get it to move left on the end. And then we go back uphill with a low ceiling shot. There is some out of bounds at a fence line behind the basket. But getting yourself in a position where you can throw a full swing second shot, not be pinched off, is critical. Callaway takes the kind of higher option with the gap, pushes the back tree line.
Yeah, gets it to hyzer out nicely. Going to be in a decent spot. Depends on footing, really. It can get a little wet down there in that area. As Calvin asking this one to move left, going to catch those branches, push that one a little long.
And Albert, very early on the release, kind of looked back at his foot.
Yeah, I like this line here from Jakub. Keeps it on a hyzer and a little bit lower. Still doesn't keep hyzering like the angle that he was on. Pushes a little straighter than I expected it to be, but it's going to be in a good position. What?
That's a lot of power from a very compromised standstill position.
Yeah, he got that to stand up and kind of drift. It really looked like it was about to hyzer into that stuff on the right and just kept going to a pretty good spot.
Calvin out there in maybe he'll run it territory. Callaway and Jakub going to have similar positions. Ben goes fairway, but with the low ceiling and high floor conspire so that he's going to have to lay up once more.
Yeah, this second shot really plays a lot longer than it looks like with what you stated, the low ceiling, high floor, and then there's OB behind it as well. So that could be in the back of your mind as far as not wanting to throw it as hard as you can. Jakub going to come up just a little bit short. Albert looking at, in a second early release, but fights through some branches there. Still going to have a pretty long circle 2 look for his par.
Yeah, so to me, so much of playing disc side of heaven effectively is what you do off the tee. You might not birdie it if you throw a good tee shot, but you're less likely to bogey it, whereas Albert has had to throw 3 pretty long shots. Or, I'm sorry, 2 pretty long shots after his tee shot.
Yeah, and didn't want much to do with that putt at all. With the wind and the OB behind it, decides to lay it on up. Jakub has a chance for birdie here. 50 feet.
Beth at 69. I just told myself, you got to will this one in there. Whatever you have, just will it in there.
This man is unbelievable. This is what athletes live for. This is the moment.
Got a good thing coming, and it's all I need. Everything I wanted is in front of me. It's a good.
Hole 13, 435 foot par 3. Shot over this valley here. Some OB down the left side. Again, the difficulty kind of depends on the wind on this hole. Pretty easy for it to kind of hold over to the right, it seems like. Trying to avoid the OB on the left.
Heard a little what from Ben Callaway. Perhaps surprised at how much of the right side that disc held.
Yeah, it looks like those banners off to the right of the tee showed more headwind while Calvin was throwing than while Ben was throwing, so he may have caught that about halfway down. Calvin, nice shot. Be just a bit short.
Yeah, this 435 distance, particularly when there is some wind in play, puts players in between fairways and distance drivers, even the elite distance throwers.
Did you see Jakub end up just a bit right side inside circle 1? Albert, such a smooth shot. This one also just kind of hanging off to the right. Does eventually finish, but right around circle's edge, long right.
And ramping off the top has been Callaway.
Ooh,
Here's Calvin out here at 40, 45 feet.
It's not a fun sight to see, ramping off the top. Makes you really appreciate flags.
No chance of Albert ramping off the top, but he does get the other insolent sound of a basket.
So Jakub gonna card the lone birdie on the card, get himself back under par. We'll see if Ben is able to keep up that par comeback streak, and he does stay clean.
We'll go to hole 14, 855 feet, a par 5. A lot of open space here for your tee shot. Get it to move left somewhat, and that leaves a couple different options to go over the pond into the green. A lot of players who throw good tee shots are just going to try to attack, but if you're out of position, you're kind of forced to lay up into an awkward landing spot for the second.
Yeah, the eagleable hole, I suppose, out here. If you get to a great spot off of the tee, like you were saying on the last hole, really depends on how good your tee shot is, what you're able to do.
Ben's shot looks to me like he's playing to go more left than far, prioritizing getting himself in a position where he can throw a hyzer again.
Calvin looking like he went super overstable, gonna get far and left. Being left-handed, I don't know much about that spot over there.
Being a noodle arm, I don't know anything about that spot over there. And a lot of distance for Albert, however, push pretty straight. We'll see what that leaves him. Jakub not attacking, going to throw the upshot into the landing zone. This is pretty delicate and does run out of bounds. He will be throwing 4 from a drop zone.
Wow, this looks so open. I've definitely never experienced an open second shot on this hole to be able to approach the green, but Ben Callaway going to be inside circle 2, looking for an eagle.
This is more what I usually see, players having to throw up and over and kind of finding the little coffin corner spot is Calvin Heimburg.
Yeah, has maybe a slightly longer putt than Ben, but much safer to run for his eagle, as Albert may have not put... Okay, he got past those branches. Not past those branches makes that shot a lot more difficult.
And he plays forehand wide to the backside of the circle.
So Jakub, after going OB on his second, now has this drop zone shot to try to approach for his par. And he executes that well through the gap. Going to be able to save the par. Calvin is able to give that one a good run. Ben wanting nothing to do with it, going to take his easy birdie.
Probably a good choice. You know you can get the birdie. No sense risking too much off of that. Albert with the station-to-station birdie. Calvin with the knock-in from about 22 or so.
Yeah, and 13 eagles on that hole today, so quite the eagle opportunity for the big arm. Moves us into the island hole, hole 15, 315 feet. Forehand's usually going to play best, if not always. Backhand, though, is very viable. Just a pretty straight shot. As Ben sneaks on there.
Just enough. Once again, Calvin Heimburg throwing only backhands right now. Slow approach disc, thrown as straight as he can to about 15 feet.
Very well executed. Definitely a hole that you want to birdie. The wind can make it a little tricky sometimes, but still pretty straightforward.
We'll see if Jakub gets the width read. I like this. He did give it height, but it's a touch wider than either Ben or Albert, and well measured by Jakub Semerád.
All right, and Ben able to connect from maybe one of the few circle 2 putts on this hole. If that was outside, pretty close to the edge. We've got ourselves that diamond.
Hole 16, 675 feet, a par 4. New this year, there's an out-of-bounds line down the left side. So as the drone is flying, the right side is going to be most preferable. Basket kind of tucked inside a cluster of trees. Forehand is the optimal way, the cleanest way to approach. However, because players are most often throwing this right side, it more often will now force you into throwing through the wood line to attack the basket.
And a crazy wind bounce there for Ben's going to drag him off to the right side and put him in some rough I'm sure he hasn't expected or practiced out of or been to before.
Maybe even never considered its existence.
Right. Calvin gets a nice hyzer off.
A good swing from Albert Tamm. You see he starts it on hyzer, lets it snap up a little bit, but always pushing back to the left.
Similar shot there from Jakub. We're going to see what Ben ends up with down here. Wow. Looking way high and has to be cognizant of that OB on the left up here that they've added with this shot, and certainly gets it to drag way over to the right. Pretty good out there from a difficult spot.
Jakub going to try to play a backdoor hyzer, and that's frequently what happens. You get yourself something in shallow circle 2 as the branches knock it down. Albert will try to play the forehand to get the clean line, asking for it to push.
And not quite having the distance on that he wanted. Going to end up in that little tree line. And not throwing forehands makes you see Calvin get pretty creative here. maybe pushed it a bit long on that one. We'll see what type of putt he has.
Callaway does find a window, and another chaotic par for Ben Callaway.
Yeah, but well executed after that tee shot. As Albert looks to have a pretty tricky stance. Gonna make him too uncomfortable to get that putt on line. And Calvin is gonna have a very nice putt. Wide open. Has himself another turkey on the round, 8 under.
Yeah, that's 8 under with 2 bogeys also.
Moves us into hole 17, 660-foot par 4. Got this low branch to contend with off of the tee. They have finally made this right side OB, so you're not going to see those big hyzers off into nothing over there, or into tick land, as I would have described it before. A nice skip to get Calvin into a pretty good spot to throw another straight backhand.
The reference point that you're looking at off the tee is most often the red lined stake. You know, if you're anywhere within about a 50-foot radius of that, you should be inbounds and able to see the basket at 250 feet.
Yeah, interesting to see Albert go with the backhand here. I mean, it shapes fine for either shot, but with his powerful forehand, I thought we might see that, as Jakub going to be in a great spot past that 250-foot marker you were talking about.
And Jakub with maybe the most overstable disc I've ever seen to get that ground play. Albert, this is tracking left. There is an out-of-bounds line on the left side also that's pretty close. And the roll on the end is going to put him in that out-of-bounds.
Yeah, with a pretty scary putt to try to save his par, as this is surrounded by OB on the back as well. And the elevated basket and slight downhill slope going to drag you there pretty quickly. It's what makes this approach shot a bit touchy. Very difficult to get your disc to just sit slowly. Calvin Heimburg, though, been doing great at that most of the day. Going to card himself another birdie, move to 9 down.
Jakub rewarded for his aggressive tee shot, able to throw a very slow disc. Keeps it on a disciplined angle and inside the bullseye. Here is Callaway, just inside the circle, and a good strike.
Yeah, that clean round starting to pay off now. Has moved himself to 6 under with a pretty good back nine going. A great par putt there from Albert as well. Keep him at 6 down.
And we are going to close it out on hole 18, 495 feet, a par 3. Backhand players likely to attack this either going straight at it with a flex play, or perhaps a wide hyzer depending on the wind. If you're not feeling that, just have to break it into 2 parts with a layup and then another layup.
Really high in the air here from Calvin is going to cause this one to jump off to the left.
Ben gets the read, takes the same attack, but perhaps a different stability, and bullseye.
Gonna keep that bogey-free round going. I'll say with that shot, like the width on this one a lot better, and he had that distance dialed in, able to stick it inside bullseye. What a finish for Ben Callaway.
Jakub seems like he's lining up the middle shot instead. Likes his overstable play. However, this is very right and still moving right.
Yeah, I feel like you don't see the middle play gone for as often as you would expect. Usually if you're going down the middle, it's kind of a layup shot.
So that will force Jakub to the drop zone on the 18th. And Albert with an ace run.
My goodness.
I don't know if
check
that
out
basket would still be standing if he had hit it.
Yeah, check out the air time on this shot. Just so much power. I called Calvin's shot too high. That's why he ended up left. But this is just as high, if not higher. And wow. I'll never experience that on this hole.
If this hole was mirrored, you still couldn't experience that. You don't have Albert Tamm's full rip.
Yeah, not a chance. If this hole was mirrored, I may be able to try the straight shot to go for it. So we're going to see a couple bogeys and a couple birdies on our card to finish out the round.
Not uncommon for the field, but terrific action here in round 2. Moving day in just this 3-round tournament. We'll take a look at the leaderboard here. Calvin with 3 bogeys still shoots 8 down. Ben and Albert at 7. And Jakub, a little bit of work to do, gives some ground to the field with that 2-down effort.
Yeah, but still sitting inside that top 20, a chance for him to gain some good points with a good third round.
Yeah, you play for the season-long points. So we certainly hope that you will join us for the 3rd and final round of the Jonesboro Open here on the Gatekeeper Media channel. For Nathan Queen, I'm Andrew Fish.
We'll see you guys out there.